Good morning, everybody. It's Reed. We had a little technical difficulty there, but we are live here. And today is Saturday, April the 12th. And I try to do this live every Saturday at 10 a.m. to answer questions that you may have about what's going on in real estate and what's going on Whidbey Island and in the Skagit Valley. A lot of great local stuff. So, today we've got some, in real estate with all the tariff stuff that's been going on this past week or the past month. But this past week, there's been a lot of volatility, and that is affecting real estate. And so I'm here to answer your questions, what you might want to know about how it's affecting real estate. I don't have all the answers, but I've got some info and what I see going on, and would be happy to answer your questions. So feel free to put a comment, hop on, and we could bring your comment up and discuss that. Let me make sure I have that part live so I would see that. There we go. That's not what I want. Yep. So yeah, let me know and we can chat. In the meantime, I'm going to kind of talk about a couple of things that I'm seeing, and we can. So looking at what's going on as far as with the tariffs and how that has been affecting the real estate market. One of the things that I did not expect, I guess just didn't see. I mean, obviously interest rates. So interest rates started going down, was looking really good, was really exciting earlier in the week. We got our VA interest rate down around 4.4. Actually, no, almost, I mean, not 4.4, excuse me. We haven't seen 4.4 in a long time, to just about 5%. And, or 5, yeah, I'm still off. So yeah, but just right around, just into the high fives, just below 6%. And then the regular 30-year fixed mortgage was getting down in that 6.5% range, which was really exciting. We haven't been there in a bit. And then, yeah, a bunch of changes, and the tariff thing shifted, and now we're sitting back with the 30-year fixed sitting around 7% again. So that's not terribly encouraging. Although there are a couple things you can do with different mortgage programs that can help alleviate some of that. None of it's as good as lowering the interest rate. But if you are in the market to buy, and this is the peak real estate transaction season, April, May, June right now. So most houses typically come on the market this time of year, and most transactions happen. So if you are in that place and you're a little nervous about interest rates, I've got one lender, and they are willing to lock in your interest rate for 120 days. So that lets you lock your interest rate. You can adjust it down one time during that time frame, and then you can take that stress off of your shoulders of worrying that you're going to find the right house, and that happens to be the day the interest rates jump back up again. So that gives you 90 days to find a house, and then 30 days to close escrow, which is pretty much our norm these days. So that is one option. There's another one. I've got a lender that's also willing to do. They're willing to take the interest rate down 1%. They're going to eat the cost for the first year. So they will knock your interest rate down. So your payment, you still have to qualify at the regular interest rate. And I would never recommend anybody buy a house they can't afford. That's, nope. But this can help shave some costs off for that first year, because you've got closing costs, you've got costs of getting moved, depending on where you're moving from. That can be from, $1,000 to $20,000. So shaving that 1% off that mortgage payment can make a difference. So that's what we got there. We'll see what interest rates do going forward. There's some concern about inflation picking up. I mean, I gotta say, thank goodness, I just bought a brand new iPhone, and with the tariffs on China, they're saying, iPhones could cost over $3,000, which I'm glad I got mine last weekend. Wasn't even planning that. Just so happened Christy and I were in Dallas for a conference, and you know my old phone. I'm always in my car every day, and so I'd put it on the. It's always charging. I charged it. We got down there where I didn't. We were traveling around by Uber, and we got out by noon. My phone's telling me you got a low battery, and I was like, well, if my phone doesn't, if neither of our phones work, we don't have Uber, and then we're going to be walking. So that wasn't a good option. So we took the next Uber ride to the nearest Apple store, got a new phone. And it wasn't until later that I realized that I probably saved myself, $1,500 by buying it then before these tariffs take effect and the new phones shoot up. That's assuming the tariffs stay in place because the way things have been going, I wouldn't count on a whole bunch. They seem to change about daily. So let's see here. There you go. That's really weird. Technical issues, I'm telling you. So yeah, that's so back on the topic of tariffs and how it's affecting the real estate industry. I was reading about one area I had not really thought of, and that is how the tariffs are affecting commercial real estate in ports. So during COVID, as we had that backlog on materials coming into the country when things, when everything was shut down, and there was shortages, so they started importing stuff as fast as they could and warehousing it so that if they're worried about another blip, and so the value of those warehouses shot up. There was a huge demand for warehousing near ports, and so a lot of investors and businesses did some high leverage investing to purchase more warehouse space. And so that's, when the high leverage means you put a little bit down, when you borrow a lot of money, because it's a long-term play, you're looking at, hey, well, this is going to bring us in a lot of revenue in the long term. But you're also at more risk because you don't have as much skin in the game. So now with these tariffs, we're looking at dramatically reduced imports coming into the United States. I mean, a lot of businesses have stopped, a lot of manufacturing has shut down because they don't know what their cost of goods are going to be. They need part A, B, C, and D in order to make their final product that they can sell. And with these tariffs going up and down and up and down, they don't know what that cost is going to be. And manufacturers are looking at the big long term. They order parts today to be manufactured in China or India or wherever they are because they need those parts on their assembly line in June or July, because those parts have to be manufactured there, then they have to be put on a ship and then shipped over here and then go into a warehouse and then go through inventory and then get put on a truck and delivered and right on time so they can make it into their product. Well, they have no idea what those parts are going to cost in 3 months. So some places have literally just shut down. And so we're closed. We're waiting to see what happens here because you can't make a good business decision if you don't know how to price your products because you don't know what your materials costs are. It's really crazy. And then same thing with labor. With all the deportations, a lot of manufacturers use immigrants for labor that, and suddenly you lose your labor force. And so how do you make plans for that? So that's one of the effects. But yeah, I had not really thought about the effect on all this commercial warehouse space in ports. I mean, all over the country, in Tacoma, in LA, in Houston, on the East Coast, that's all over these places. So what's that going to do? Because there's big companies that had huge investments in that. Are they going to be, or they're either buying or they're leasing? So they're going to go back to their landlord and renegotiate those leases? Or if they own them, are they going to go belly up? They're going to try to sell them for 60 cents on the dollar. Is there a market? Does anybody want to buy those warehouses? I don't know. So there we go. That's something interesting. On the other hand, looking at real estate as a whole for the market, there's a couple things that are changing. and that is number one, luxury. The luxury market, these multi-million-dollar homes, they're still doing great. Because the people that have the money to own those homes, buy those kinds of homes, are not affected very much by what's going on. So the luxury real estate market is still booming and doing quite well. That gives us an advantage here on Whidbey Island. We do have some beautiful waterfront properties, and there are plenty of people looking to purchase those kinds of homes. And they're not as affected by what's going on. Of course, it depends on how much invested you are in the stock market. That seems to go up and down and up and down every other day. Let's see. What else is going on? Oh, the third thing. Does anybody have any questions? Hop on here and let me know if you have a question about what's about the market or about what's going on in real estate altogether. Okay, we're going to keep the live a little shorter this time. I usually do 30 minutes. I'm probably going to keep it down to 15 minutes today. I got some other things going on, and the sun's coming out. I'm looking forward to enjoying the day. Got an ice cream social to go to later. So, Miranda, if you're watching, we'll see you in a couple of hours. So one of the other things is we're seeing, as the real estate market has gone up in prices, interest rates have gone up. It's made more expensive areas on the coastal part of the United States more expensive and less affordable. So we have more people. There's a little more demand in some of the central Midwest states, Oklahoma, Ohio, Iowa, where the median sales price is, in the $300,000 price range, and you can buy a house for a couple $100,000, which you cannot do here on Whidbey Island or in Skagit County. You can't buy anything that is livable, that is on where you own the land. You can buy a mobile home and a mobile home park, but then you're paying rent. Rent mobile home parks nowadays has kind of gotten ridiculous. $800, $900, $1,200 a month, and you still have to own your home. So, so that's what we're seeing. Any other questions from anybody out there? Let's see here. I got one question here from John. He sends me a message from Instagram. Let's see. Will new tariffs make it more expensive to repair or upgrade my home before selling it? Absolutely, assuming they stay where they are. They keep changing. But, most of the stuff you're putting into your house, the lumber to build, most of that lumber comes from Canada. So there are still tariffs on building materials coming from Canada. I think the building materials are back down to 10% today. I'm not sure what they will be. I believe, last I looked, I think the higher tariffs are on the car parts, coming in from Canada and Mexico. Other than that, I think everybody else is at 10% today, except for China that is at 125% tariff. So but you're still going to expect that the lumber and some of your appliances, whether the whole appliance is made in Canada or parts of your appliance are made in Canada, those are going to be more expensive too. And that goes for also your light fixtures, lots of your light fixtures, and those things come from Mexico. So it's definitely going to cost you more money to make updates to your home. I would plan on 10% at least, and we'll wait and see what next week brings with the tariffs. So there we go. And let's see, question here. How might tariffs affect buyer demand, and how quickly can I sell my home? They're kind of wondering if buyers are going to hesitate due to the increased costs and the economic uncertainty. I absolutely believe we're going to see less buyers for two reasons. Number one, because interest rates have gone back up, so that's pushed people out of the market. For every 1% change, so for 1% drop in interest rates adds 1 million qualified home buyers to our market. And so for every 1% increase in interest rate, there's 1 million home buyers in the country that are no longer qualified to purchase a home. So the higher interest rate and then economic uncertainty. There's obviously people are concerned about whether or not they're going to have a job next month or next week. Whether that is because they have a government job and they're worried about being laid off, or they're worried about economic changes that are going to cause companies to lay off because business slows down. And when we have business slows down, you have less sales, you have less revenue, you have to cut costs somewhere. You have increased costs of materials from the tariffs are going to cause companies to try to be more efficient. And so people will be concerned about losing their job there. So yeah, I believe both those things are true. And it's a tough nut to crack. One advantage we have here on Whidbey Island is that we do have the number of people that are military buyers. On one hand, a lot of them, they're really looking at the lower end of our price point for purchasing. On the other hand, the Navy, the economic effects of the Navy base keeps our housing market a little more steady than other places, because the Navy doesn't stop moving people here because of short-term decisions. Those are decisions that are made several years ago. But we will see. We are living in changing times and a lot of uncertainty. So stand by, and we'll check in next week. If you guys have any questions about buying or selling real estate, feel free to give me a call. Be happy to answer any questions you have. Reed Schwartz with eXp Realty, and you have an amazing Whidbey Island day. And for those of you in Skagit Valley, you can have an amazing Skagit day too. All right, we'll see you next week.